in this document in terms of, cushioning the economy and of course we get to understand the mechanisms of the same as we proceed with the conversation. But before we get to the conversation, I think it's only fair that we allow Honorable Elachi, finish on the point that she was making before we also get the view of Honorable Kasim. And now we proceed to the conversation. I already have a Member of Parliament, Nambale Sakwa Bunyasi, who joins us this morning. But before we introduce him or we get to see him, let's come back to the papers. Honorable Elachi.
Yes, and I was just saying that when we look at the political temperatures that we have, this is something we need to stand now as a country and just say no, that we must have political tolerance, that we must appreciate, and we must stop using words to incite. We must stop to use burials, for heaven's sake, to use them as rallies. This is not going to be it becomes very sad when you find young people fighting to each other. And the most thing that politicians should be asking themselves is when you go to an area and then you leave people, their kiosks are damaged, people have all the properties, everything is gone, you have left that person as a hustler. Yet you find him doing his own small job, employing other small people. Now, the moment you leave there and you come and give us a slogan and call others, we must ask why our people in such helplessness.
Right.
It is because some of the years that have passed, we have pushed people as political leaders to a level where people lost their property, people lost everything. What do you expect that person to be when we have not given a solution? When our country is 2 years, you look for economy, you build that economy. 3 years, you destroy that economy. That is what we do in this country for the last 27 or 28 years. Building an economy for 2 years, destroying it in 3 years. And we start on again.
All right, and as the hustler train finds its way to the coast, Honorable Sawa, I know you people are on standby. I don't know how you look at this and what you make of it and whether you think they're going to make any gains. But I mean, away from that, even as we talk about the politics, a story captured on the Standard newspaper, the front page is that inside the state's plan to tame politicians and all-out war alarmed by rising tensions, government rolls out multi-agency strategy to stop inciters in their tracks. Remember that list of shame by NCIC, and they say if you appear on this list of shame like twice, then sadly enough, you will not be allowed to take any seat in the country. What do you make of this, and just how successful is the state likely to be, knowing that we've spoken about intolerance for quite a while now?
Thank you. I think we've had this conversation previously about the institutions, especially which came up in the 2010 Constitution. Unfortunately, it has been talk and no action. I don't think there'll be any difference this time from the NCIC, learning from the previous experience. But having said that, I think I will still take it to the top, that is the president himself, because he appoints the heads of these institutions from BCI to DPP to those commissions. And sometimes you wonder probably whether the process is really worth that effort, whether they are appointed on merit or it's also a political
You have the president categorically stating that it's important we tame ourselves, because if it is about firing shots, then I mean every other person has ways of doing that, and so if it is that route that we all choose, it won't be very good. So if this is coming from the president, I mean, it's proper for us to just acknowledge the fact that yes, peace begins with us, security begins with us?
That is true, but you see, saying with no action actually does not help. We've had him say, everybody says, the NCIC says, the DPP says is going to act, but after that, nothing. I think that is where the problem is. No action from all the other institutions which are tasked to deal with this menace. So I think henceforth, some action has to be taken, not just the normal talk that we've always had previously. And if this continues, then I think what Beatrice is saying, Honorable Beatrice is saying, will come to pass. It is going to be quite unfortunate that we are going back to the same cycle where after every 5 years, we destroy our economy, we destroy our lives, we go back to square zero. And this must continue. Probably then, with the new document, the BBI, with some mention that it is also trying to cure that menace. Let it come to pass also and see. Otherwise, with the same institutions, with the same talk, with the same warnings, I don't think there'll be any difference.
All right, as we drop that now let's get to the conversation. And now that you mentioned the BBI, we kickstart from there. Siaya, first county to pass BBI draft law. Members of the county assembly deny using BBI to blackmail government to give them car grants. How genuine is that, and how realistic is this in terms of the finances at a time when what it is that Fred spoke about, we've been battling with COVID-19. It's been tough at the level of the health sector. And so when some of the people look at these moves by the key leaders, then they put question marks as to what really our priorities are. And Honorable Bunyasi Sakwa is here with us. Mheshimiwa, good to have you.
Thank you.
Karibu sana. We've taken the conversation a little bit, well, so to speak, halfway. And here we start on the actual one on matters BBI at the level of the county. This is a story also that has been captured on all the papers. Historic move also. Siaya proceeding to, have this document sail through. Probably, as many would term it, Baba loyals are always loyals, so to speak. And so eyes are on Mount Kenya as to whether indeed after that Ghana meeting much will come out in terms of, ensuring that this document sails through.
Yeah, indeed. I don't think it's a surprise at all that Siaya has approved, or that it's the first one. But I guess that's the nature of the BBI. There are those adherents and who work closely with the proponents, and so that is going to, I think, to be the pattern across the country. I'm yet to see when you get legal institutions like the assemblies, who are supposed to be, or National Assembly or County Assembly, to be reflective on this, even if they are in favor, allow a debate that explores the issues from the perspective of approving it. And if that is not happening, you can see that the way our the political depth around this is not very high. So, but it's good that for those who want to come out and say, yes, why waste time? Go ahead, let us do it.
All right, well, go ahead and just do it. And well, this car grant thing has really, raised temperatures. I don't know whether we should really delve into that, but again, it's just the reality of the politics of handouts that we are used to playing, that, the members of county assemblies were eagerly waiting for this moment so they can also, dish out their demands.
Thank you, Linda. I'd want to dwell more on the processes of the county assemblies.
But we do not run away from this.
But on the issue of car grants, I think the members of county assembly are state officers.
Yes.
Just like any other state officers, there's some entitlements that they have, and they can be provided for within the constitutional and legal framework that exists. And therefore, that matter, we shall leave it at that for me. Now, I have seen people argue about the issue of Siaya, how the debate took place. While it is true that Raila Odinga, as a BBI principal, comes from Siaya, it's also true that he has immense support in Siaya.
Yes.
But also there are certain facts about popular initiative as a bill and the stages that it goes through. And you're going to see that this week. Many of them, we are likely to see I'm projecting by probably end of next week, over 10 counties assemblies shall have passed the bill. Now, this is the issue that your viewers must know. Any popular initiative, the issue of public participation starts from the general propositions when the public give their views, and it goes ahead to the formulation of those views into a bill. Now, the moment the public endorses the bill, and in this case you have seen registered voters endorse that bill in accordance with the provisions of 257, that is another level of public participation. The other level of public participation is when now it goes to the county assemblies, where the county assemblies are required to consider that bill within the 90 days.
Yeah.
The last stage of public participation will be the referendum, where the public will make a final say. But here's the deal. When you look at all these debates and arguments, was it done? Was it given enough time? Was it subjected through the stages? I would say yes, because in this country, first of all, we don't have a Public Participation Act.
Yes.
But the route through a popular initiative is a secure route to the extent that it has got inbuilt public participation. And I've explained where it starts and where it ends, and all these. But the Constitution also mandates the county assemblies to facilitate public participation in their legislation, and that is provided for in Article 196. And if you read it, they shall facilitate. Now, go to the County Government Act, Section 20, subsection 1. It also says that they shall do public participation, and they can invite those views through memorandum, public debates, emails, and there's so many ways.
Right.
That one alone is another level of public participation. Now, in my view, the only thing that is required of the county assembly members is to look at the bill, approve or reject on its merits or demerits.
Okay.
Remember, the county assembly are not allowed to even change a comma, even add a comma to this bill. And to that extent, the level of public participation is limited. The Attorney General of this country has given an opinion. Yes. In his opinion, as requested by the county of Kericho, Nandi, and Makueni, and he did say that in doing public participation, the law allows the county assembly members to facilitate the public participation.
Allow me to come in, and I know you'll expound some more on that as we proceed. But when we say, and we are acknowledge the fact that yes, the role of public participation then becomes limited. In this case, reality it is that it is necessary, and the likes of Siaya, members of county assembly have come out to justify how the processes of public participation were conducted in their respective county. But then again, we come to the fact that there have been complaints for the longest of time that the public has actually not had the chance to, properly have a copy of this document or have copies of this document circulating at their disposal. The other day, I hosted members of county assemblies who acknowledged that in Central itself, has been a hullabaloo because these people have not read the document. So in this case, just how much of public participation will come in?
You see,
let's allow
yes.
Honorable Kasim to come in, and then you want to say something briefly, and then we allow him to come in, or we allow him to come in first?
Okay.
Because he's in Malindi, and I mean at that particular level, probably he's engaged people to just get to know whether they have looked into the document first before we even talk about public participation, which is actually a process that comes first before even people getting deep into the document. Honorable Kasim?
Thank you. You see, I'll pick it from the issue of public participation. To me, the issue of public participation will be important if you are going to do an amendment. You are going to take into consideration the views that you are going to take. But from where I sit, and I think that's the right position, where in this bill, nothing can be done into it. I think even listening into views and recording them and whatever will not change that. You are not going to incorporate, you're not going to add anything. So the issue here is to either vote yes or no. And from where I sit, the BBI debate has taken too long. It's part of the reason why the political temperatures are rising. So the faster it is passed from the county assemblies, the better. For me, I would want it passed as early as yesterday, because for some of us from Coast, where we are strong proponents of inclusion, and the BBI having incorporated, at least strengthened its production by taking company to the county, I don't think we'll have a second to wait whether to pass it or not. The issue is just passing. One, to strengthen the solution. Two, to pull this as this political temperature so that people can move on. We cannot be having the debate, the people debate over and over endlessly, bickering. we've said it before, this is like a oil, it's pending, but we bust it so that now we have the healing process. That will be my position.
Well, that's an interesting view right there, Honorable Elachi. This is a crucial document, and while we could be having proponents sitting here, I think it is only proper that it doesn't matter how long it takes, for as long as we get it right. We can not rush it just because we have a feeling that we should not be in this electioneering mode or in this, tense mode, or so to speak. It is only fair that we allow the people the chance to take, a chance to go through the document, understand it, so at least we do not rush into a document that will end up regretting.
Well, first of all, I think this is a document that has worked in the public for the last 2 years.
Okay.
Now, when we talk about public participation, the question now will be, and you now, at that time, you need to quote the law. And if you're questioned, you need to say, the law says you do public participation for 7 days, for 6 days, for 1 day. Then there you will be able to say, you can ask or question the county assemblies why they have not done public participation, or why they have done public participation, which I know Siaya did, and did not finalize maybe the days, did go into parliament, because parliament can also sit and just reduce the days. The law allows that. So the public participation that we're talking about is public participation of what amount? And therefore, for me, I would say this. Number one, the county assemblies will go through public participation. They will inform the citizens of their wards, of their counties, ensure you put into the papers, which they did, Siaya. Come back, ensure you go into those ward levels, which is the lowest level in terms of the county, in terms of administration, in terms of giving services. And so if you can do in the 6 sub-counties of Siaya and you've gone to the wards, then I don't know what type of public participation we're talking. Because again, the law does not tell them, in your public participation, you must be 100 people, you must be 1 person, you must be, it doesn't. So for them, if 100 or 200 people come, then you have done your public participation. So before Kenyans question public participation, and those who are saying, the nays who are saying, oh, we don't need BBI, and question public participation, you need to come and tell us. Is it the numbers you're talking about? Is it the law that we have not followed, or what? But in terms of public participation, I think the county assemblies, especially the one of Siaya, it did public participation.
Honorable
You cannot question.
You had some reservations on this.
I mean, I think that too many generalities, and I have difficulty with that. The intent of public participation is that every critical stage there be public participation.
Yes.
I think it's misleading to say that in fact this document has been around for X period. This document that we are talking about is the one then that is submitted to the assembly. That had not been there before. There had been discussions around its design, its development. It has implications for public policy as everybody sees it. So people had views. But the public participation that is intended is that at the point at which a decision is being made, that there be views from other stakeholders other than those immediately involved on that particular step. Now we are talking about the document as, and I have not seen the document as submitted to the county assembly.
Okay.
That's the one that public participation discussions we are talking about. Not whether we participated last year or last month, because there have been changes, remember, from bombers and so on. So what you are asking people to is their view on that which is presented. It's true that it is take or leave it, and that you cannot do amendment. That's okay. But then the decision is even bigger. Yes. That you deliberate and you reject it in its entirety or accept it in its entirety. A very heavy decision, as opposed to that in which you can make incremental amendments and so on and so forth. The process that we are trying to bring forth now through the awaited approvals of counties, and if you reach the threshold 24, moves the process forward, is a heavy constitutional matter. It's a heavy decision in our political and legal history. And yes, we shall have, as I said earlier, we shall have those assemblies that are already convinced before the thing arrives. They will approve in very quick time. We shall have those assemblies that may have difficulties And the way it is, you may have difficulties in sections of it and you may like other sections of it. Then you are now asked, you're called upon to make the decision. In the main, in overall terms then, you like some, you hate some, you don't like some.
Yes.
Would you let it go as it is with those likes and dislikes? And some will say, yes, I'll let it go because I like this very much. Others will say, I won't let it go because I really dislike this aspect of it very much.
Yes.
That deliberation, that reflection is not a one-time thing. Now is the time that assemblies for the first time are going to see a document in black and white. Nobody in this country at any one time had seen the whole document. Because it has been in continuous transition. It has been changing. When the public statements made that there will be no change, when actually there are people sitting to make changes, and they have. So now we know it for the first time, and that's what is before the assembly. And I think it's fair if an assembly decides, oh, we like this, don't worry, we're going to pass it before it arrives. That's a decision they would make, because maybe the sensitization in that area is such that people know these issues, they overall they like the document, they're going to approve it, period, or for any other reasons. And a very quick one on the 2 million shilling, whether it's a bribe or not. This entire system from the top, from the
grants.
The grant, yes. The cabinet secretaries, the principal secretaries, and senior officers, National Assembly members, and Senate, and so have all got grants.
Yes.
PSS get grants of about 14, 15 million shillings each, and then they have many cars in the pool. It's the system. So I think that the issue of getting the grants at the assembly should not even be a presidential decision. It follows suit.
Okay.
If we want to clean it out, if we feel we shouldn't do that, if we feel we should go back to loans that are recoverable during that time, let it then be decided in its entirety. Government, the executive should do that, the assembly, the national one, the parliament, and the county assemblies should all be subject to the same norms. Once you grant, they allow it to happen. So obviously, when you allow that, if there was a blockage at a time a decision is coming, you can link the two and say it's a bribe. I mean, that's logical. So just to conclude, I personally feel that this is a momentous moment, and the decisions require much deeper reflection than the very populist way we are doing this.
All right, allow us to loop in Honorable Elijah. Oh, okay. Well, she will be getting a hold of her later on. Coming back to you, and you've heard what Mheshimiwa speaks of this, and I'd say that I'm a few or amongst the few lucky ones to have probably seen the actual document, the one that you sent me. That I'd say that, well, I'd want to believe that is the actual document, the 234-page document. And true to it is that I've also had conversations with people who are at the root and the heart of the BBI conversation, trying to push that at the Secretariat. And again, gotten documents that are totally different in a way, in terms of the number of pages, in terms of what it is that has been incorporated. And therefore, Mheshimiwa is justified to argue that as of now, it is not even clear of what exactly, we are having a conversation revolving around.
Linda, first of all, we must make things straight. Number one, this notion that it doesn't matter how long it takes, it matters. This is a constitutional process with constitutional timelines.
Yes.
The timelines that are required at the county assembly level is only 90 days. The constitution provision in Article 257 requires that they shall consider that bill within 90 days from the date it was submitted to them by IEBC. That started counting from 25th of January. They shall end that on 26th of April. Number two.
How many days? Okay, yes.
No, 90 days. Number two, public participation is a continuous process. It's not a one-day process. And that's why the BBI bill has taken a journey. And I want to tell you, this is just like the same way we did Punguza Mzigo. Because now, this is the issue. When the Constitution talk about the bill did not arrive as a bill. Yes. The bill arrived to that level as a general proposition. Then it was formulated by the promoters into a bill. So it therefore means that everything that is in that bill has been received from the general propositions that were in the report.
Yes.
Today, we are discussing the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 that has gone to the county assemblies. That is the document that we're discussing. And that is the document that the people at the ward level must now understand how is it going to affect them. And I agree with the Speaker Elachi when she says that it must go to the smallest unit. The smallest unit in this case is the ward level. Remember, they are going to be told that how is this bill proposing the achievement of the guarantees of socioeconomic rights in terms of providing water, social services, Medicare, electricity, and so on and so forth at the ward level. Remember, they live in a county. They're going to be explained to how increment of the equitable share of the county revenue from at least 50% or 35% will affect their lives in that county. And therefore, in my argument is very simple, that the bill has traveled. It has traveled from general proposition to a bill level. Number two, this bill is not just any other bill. This bill is a special bill.
Yes.
In county legislation, the bills that there are of two nature, and maybe even in national, in parliament, money bill or ordinary bill. But in this case, this is a special bill, and the clerk has defined the bill or as explained the bill as a special bill. The consideration that the BBI bill is going to receive, just like they did in the Punguza Mizigo bill, is a special consideration.
Yes.
Ordinarily, this bill should go through the first reading, where the bill is tabled, and the clerk reads the title of the bill, and then it's taken to the second reading, public participation, then committee stage, from committee stage, third reading, and then the next. But in this instance, because this bill has been published, and when somebody says that we don't know which bill it is, this bill has been
this is
published.
not just somebody, but a member of parliament who's...
That member of parliament, it is unfortunate. It is unfortunate that member of parliament is not conversant with the legislative framework. I mean, it's very unfortunate. But the issue here is, Linda, what the public must know, because your viewers are watching this, they want to understand and they want to know. This is what they should know. That bill has been published. The BBI bill has been published by the government printers. You have seen it. And that bill has been taken to the county assemblies. Now, the decision at the county assembly is a decision of a vote. And people are saying, let's give it time, let's have more people talk about it. The requirement at the assembly is that the decision shall be made by the members present and voting. And it is the simple majority. So in my view, if today the bill arrives at Homa Bay County, for example, and there are 20 members present and voting, those are the members that are going to make the decision on the bill. And it will carry majority on that basis. If 15 of them say yes, that's it. That is what the law says, not Okango.
Yes.
Then lastly, on this, we must understand that while we know, and it is a requirement that the public views must be considered. In fact, ordinarily, in a proper public participation, the final decision must capture the views of the public participant. But in this case, the issue is very clear, is that the bill cannot be amended, because if you amend it, it renders the 1 million threshold signatures moot. In fact, it defeats the purpose of a popular initiative, because that's why I'm saying the public participation in this process is inbuilt. It started from the day the promoters of the bill initiated a formulation in terms of proposition. That is when it started. So you cannot change anything. Ordinarily, if they were to be given a county assembly's time to amend, we are going to have 47 different bills. But the Constitution talk about bill, not bills. And therefore, I submit that it is important that the public understand. But the most important thing is, why are we doing public participation, Linda? We are doing public participation because the public must know that how is these propositions in this bill going to affect you as a citizen, and that is the nature of the public participation.
Just how much or what effect would this be, acknowledging the fact that, again, from where I started, people have not been able to get a hold of this document.
Linda, don't confuse the two issues. We are talking about a bill.
Let alone the bill. That's why I said, let alone the conversation that is within the bill.
That is true and not true also. Because when the promoters of the bill are doing public sensitization, they have been going with the documents. I
Yes.
saw in Sagana
Yes.
when the documents were given to people. I saw in Nyeri last year, December, the documents were supplied. I saw in Siaya when they were doing that.
Let's
So
allow
for me-
Honorable.
No, wait.
Yes.
For me,
Yes.
it is. That line is Tanga-ish,
Yes.
if I may say.
Okay.
Which is okay.
It is Linda
Which is
Katiba-ish.
proper because then
No, no,
it raises a conversation that is important.
There's nothing wrong, but
Yes.
I'm just saying because I've listened to that line and I've seen where it's coming from. The truth of the matter
It is not justified?
When it is not. When you are conducting a public participation, you
Then you
must
have
come
the
with a document
Yes.
that you are educating the public on. That document today is called Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020.
That raises the question then again on public participation and just how many people will be privy to this information.
I think we are even getting more confused on this issue. There's been information in the public domain, largely with the head, like they used to do with the Bible a long time ago. No congregants didn't read it. Largely by word of mouth, telling people what it is, and some of it for those who are able, more elitist people who are able to access it on the internet and have a little money, they have read the policy development documents.
Yes.
When, for example, people were signing, there was the bill was some draft they said would not change, which has changed, as a matter of fact. So what is legitimate is that, as it is, as we speak now, what IBC released 10 days ago, I don't know how, a few days ago now, a week perhaps,
Yes.
what is now the document.
Correct.
Anything prior to that has been hearsay legally.
Okay.
Just been hearsay. It's a build up to that. Public participation does not then mean that when it comes, you look at it and say, yes, we agree with this because it will give us 25% more, 35% more of the revenue come. If that is the major basis, and you say, our elected leaders, when you go back to the assembly, you should approve this. We allow you to go ahead. In that word, you tell your representative, you go ahead, approve it, we like it as your constituents in this ward. And in the totality, the assembly can go ahead and approve it as is presented. And let me tell you, the decision they face is a heavier one than one which simply would have sought amendments.
Yes.
It is take it or leave it, accept it or reject it. And on that threshold then, the discussion, in fact, should be perhaps even more intense internally for them to go to the vote. The vote is the final decision thing. To go to the vote, and they'll be seeking a simple majority in each assembly to approve it. And they have 90 days. There is a reason why it is 90 days rather than 1 week, because the other 8 would have arrived and the following day should approve it. The 90 days is to allow them to reflect on it, to allow them to get back to their constituents, and now explain the specifics, not the general policy. Because what needs to go to the referendum are the critical decision points on this. And once people understand that, or understand it enough to make a judgment,
So do you suppose then Siaya took this a little bit too fast?
they may have had their own shortcuts and or ways of doing it. I do not believe that from 25th to now, the way things are delivered, committed to the assembly, agreed to go back to the constituents, that this time has been rather short, if that's the case, I really would say. And now we don't want to mix up what ought to happen with what happened. Yes. I don't know what happened in Siaya. I know what ought to happen. So, but what happened in Siaya may have been what ought to happen, may not have been. I've not seen that. Does anybody have a factual information of when this was committed, when the various wards actually looked at it, and so on?
Published in the newspaper last week.
It is?
Yes, it was published in the newspaper.
No. In Siaya, it was published in the newspaper. So when were these ward meetings? Siaya has 5 constituencies, I think.
They've tried the level best to justify that.
Yeah.
I know, yes.
That they have gone down to the ground. We know how these things travel and back. If they have not in the same mode as they do the public participation on the county integrated development plan, is no consultation at all. You go to the market, you read out something, and as you say, there may have been 10 people there, maybe 100 people there, it doesn't matter. You do it because you have appeared to have done that. But remember, these are changes that will transform not only our politics, but our societies. For the better in many cases, maybe not for the better according to others. And on this Tanga issue, I must comment on this. When you have these kinds of proposals, there are people who say, no, we do not like it, and those say, yes, we like it.
True.
Both are legal, they are constitutional. They should be funded if there was going to be public processes. Both sides must be funded by the state. That's what happened in 2010, and in the prior ones too. You funded the yes the yes sayers, is it the naysayers, and those who agree. They are both legitimate, and none of it is illegal. And that's why we have had a problem now with virtual political criminalization of those who are opposed to the process. They have their point of view, and as they say, the majority have their say, their way, and minority have their say. That's the aptitude we must proceed by, and allow all this totality of people to feel they're in a legal process by whatever position they hold. So that's what
I would want to assume that Fred, in a way, was trying to say that, well, while this is a political process, again, you know, the politics that has been played is probably not proper in terms of seeing the document either sale or not a sale, because, well, while we could be having opposers and, you know, people who agree with the document, it is only fair that we also have conversations that are legit and are worth, you know, getting this document to the place where it is supposed to get. And so, looping in,
just actually to because you mentioned that, actually to just put it straight in 1 second. What I'm saying is very simple. Some of the comments that have been put across that the document is not available, we have never seen it, it's from the people that, as he says, are constitutionally allowed to oppose it. Those people have been from the two groups that I've mentioned. How do they argue that this document is bad while they have not read it?
But they cite, Fred, you will agree that they have cited certain things that they do not agree with. So you cannot cite a thing if you've not gone through the
availability of the document.
Yes, they have had an interaction with the document.
Yes.
It is their duty also as citizens of this country, who love this country, to take the document that they have to their people and explain to them why that document is bad or they don't agree with it. They have failed.
All right, that's interesting. But remember, the government itself has acknowledged that there's not much. Yes, let's allow Honorable Tandawa come in. The excitement and euphoria that revolves around this can get us getting it, you know, all wrong from the word go. While we could say that this is a talk of tanga, let us also acknowledge that the government itself, or maybe the Kieleweke side, so to speak, have acknowledged at some point that there's need to push this document further to the people. So that in a way is also an acknowledgement that they have failed in terms of getting the masses to understand what is incorporated in whether the document or the bill as it stands.
Thank you. Linda, on this matter, I think we have ourselves to blame. When you are told that the maximum they have up to 90 days, there is no minimum time which is stipulated. That means they can do it even in 1 day. And then the other problem that I'm seeing from those who are saying probably they needed more time is that we are used to inefficiency, whereby the longer it takes, I think that is our way of life. And we keep complaining that the costs take too long, the processes take too long. Now, when you have an assembly which is so efficient in terms of, and within a short time it is over with the process, we complain again that it has been put on. I think that is it's a very unfortunate status of the Kenyan people now, that we are used to inefficiency, that whatever is on the table should take the maximum time that there can be. I think we need to move away with this. And I think that the Siaya county has given a clue to the other counties that now we can be as efficient as we are supposed to be. Finally, on the issue of the public, this document, I think it will come a time when they will be, now it's their time to vote. And I think that is the ultimate, whether they'll vote yes or no. And the moment they vote no, that is the end of it. They vote yes, then the document passes. So even if one might not have interpreted the document in its entirety with the fullest, but the final document is yet to go to the public, and that is at the referendum. It does not end with the county, it does not end with parliament. Even when we pass it, it will still have to go to the people. So can we have this document passed? Can we be efficient? Can we set in terms of time and effort to withdraw?
All right, well, and there are likelihoods that it sails through based on what it is that the proponents have said. And, you know, they said this with the signatures and it happened. And here we are having this document at the counties. Some of them, actually, someone is asking here, it is evident that this train is unstoppable. The members of county assemblies in the central going to push this, or they have to wait for the grants to, reflect and sail through for them to now say it's okay, let's proceed and do this, because after all, they have 90 days or so to speak. But one asks, assuming the BBI sails through in central counties or in the other counties at large, what will happen to the main referendum? Is the ground going to change come 2022?
You see, Linda?
Yes.
And this takes me back to what I said. Public participation is a continuous process.
Yes.
Even today, as we speak, if there are people that for one or two reasons have not interacted with the document, we have got political representatives. The members of county assembly, it is their duty, even after passing the bill, they must go to the people back and now try and explain to them. It is their duty. The reason why they're called the people's representative, because they take care of their interest.
Yes.
Number two, there will be a time to go and vote. That time is coming. The date shall be announced, the date of the referendum. It will be set and people will vote. Between that now and that time, there's also time to interact with the bill and know more about it, so that you can make a decision to reject or approve. Lastly, when you say within 90 days, within 90 days means even if the day started on 25th, on 26th, on 27th, you can still do what is right. And that's why he's talking about efficiency.
Let's pick what Mheshimiwa spoke
Let me
about.
just finish.
And I agree that you need to finish that, but let's be realistic for a moment. And you understand the process that this document is supposed to go through before,
realistically,
in as much as we'd want to argue that, yes, there is no minimum time incorporated in this.
That's okay.
Is it realistic
but technically, there's also minimum time, because if you look at the stages of a bill, first reading, second reading, voting. So
but remember, this is a special one. Okay.
So this special one will end at the second reading, where you take a vote. And the first reading, you subject it to the committee, the public participation. So, we cannot say today, no. That's unfair. But I think there's some level of time that is required, and that one is not defined that it should be only after 90 days. No, it's within. Then you ask a very good question. What will happen when the counties, for example, Mount Kenya passes it, and will it change the perception? Referendum is about the people, and it is about the people making their say at the ballot in a popular vote. All the time that we have had referendum in this country, in a year or 2 years preceding the election, we have also seen how it changes the landscape of politics for that election. Remember 2005? 2017. You saw that. So, 2005 referendum, then 2007 election. So, history teaches us that with this, whatever happens, it is likely to configure the political landscape in a way that now the areas that will vote for the document, will be aligned towards a certain political landscape. But the most important thing is, why would the people of Kenya vote towards a certain way? If this document has got in its proposals that are going to ensure that we stop theft of public money, and proposals that are going to ensure that those cases that are dealing with corruption are expedited. Proposal to ensure that we address the issues of socioeconomic right. Proposal to ensure that we strengthen devolution by accessing more money. Proposal to ensure that we apply and implement the two principal constitutions. One of them is universal suffrage based on the equality of vote, and the other one is to ensure that not more than 2/3 of the same gender are in any public elective position. Then the public have now woken up, and they now know that when we go that route, then we are securing our future, and not only ours, but also for our children. And
mechanisms of implementation have been, the questions at hand. And I think Honorable Bunyasi Sakwa has some reservations, especially on the monies that are supposed to proceed to the counties. And while that one would also, look as though it's also the Tanga talk, is in a way justified based on the arguments that we witnessed today. And also, you have mentioned all the goodness, and I think Kenyans should focus on the goodness. But also, there's
I'm just mentioning the facts. I mean, from my
that is
reading and
sounding
my interpretation of that
Alright,
document,
okay.
that is the
He's an
fact.
advocate, a strong advocate of the BBI, obviously, clearly. But I was going to say on the question first, the question of efficiency in parliamentary or legislative processes, it has its own challenges. 5 years ago, Parliament was extremely efficient in passing security laws. Within a day, we went through all these 3 stages and so on, the issues of the tyranny of numbers and so on. Fortunately, the court, the Supreme Court, the High Court threw out a number of those laws that have been passed because obviously there had been not enough reflection on it. Yeah. They were driven by, some desire in the executive to get them done, and they didn't, fit in very well. My argument about the 90 days and whether they're going to do it in 1 day or in 89 days is simply that time period was given to allow for enough reflection on these processes, because it's a heavy decision. It's not just amending, it's you're rejecting or you're accepting. That's a big decision that an institution is given to deal with. But we also remember that the fact that assembly members agree does not mean that it's automatically going to vote. We expect that would happen because that's how they're going to present it. You are holding back the details of the document and you're explaining along the lines of what is good in it, for example. So obviously you might sway people to do that. But let us remember that there is, that's why there is some worry among close observers that let us not be too hasty and have it fail at the end. But it can't be hasty if it's within the 90 days. It could be 1 day in the 90 days, could be 89 in the 90 days, depending on the wisdom of that assembly where it's happening. We can't I can't avoid relating it to a broader perspective. There will be some counties where you can predict it will probably happen in similar speed or close second to Siaya. There will be others where it's going to drag towards the maybe 89 days or maybe even 5 days, and they will have rejected or passed it and so on. I don't think we should worry too much about that, yes or no, in what time frame it's been done, except to the effect that people are focusing on things they think are good about it. And let me tell you, some of the things that are supposed to be good about it are decisions that will be implemented via annual public policy statements, like for example the budget process. It's the budget process that will allocate resources. Remember, in our current constitution, we had the equalization fund, which provided for a certain amount of money to go to underdeveloped counties and so on. But that what government did is, whereas it existed, they did not allocate funds to it all this time. So it's one thing passing the law, it's another having it happen. It will happen when budgets are passed. And we are confusing things that are co-constitutional and things that are economic and public policy issues that are going to be subjected on an annual review and so on through a budget process and so on. They should not have crowded the referendum. The referendum should have stayed with the co-issues which the Constitution says, if changed, then there must be a referendum for it. And I just a few. The system of governance is one of those, and it's a very core one. And everybody bypasses that. We're expanding the executive from 2 people to a total of maybe 5 at the minimum. It's not just people, there are offices. These are large offices, as it's going to be. Now the question would be, somebody has to bear that, but I'm an economist and I always worry, what's the cost of all these changes? I was told, you can't cost things that require these kinds of profound changes, which means we are bringing forth something, up-fronting something that we like today, and I don't know what it implies for later generations and so on. So I really think that the debate now is no longer whether the county should take 1 day or 20 days. Some are going to pass, some will not pass it, and we shall see in the main. If we get 24, this stage is done. But there's still the next test. Then whether the citizens, and fortunately by that time I hope we'll have made enough copies progressively to get the opinion makers in our constituencies to react to it in the basis of what they read and see, or what is explained to them in small groups. One reads and you are sitting in a small caucus, that's what happens, and they'll go paragraph by paragraph and then agree or disagree. So when we go to the vote, when we ask the people in the referendum whether to go for or not, we shall tell them in the balance of what you have seen or been explained by trusted sources, go ahead. And by the way, there are some who trust the senior political leaders. So they say if they look at it I trust the person. So that's one way we make decisions.
Well, we all hope that we would move from that point to a different point altogether, because that is what has made us, some of us complain about this progressive constitution that we have in the 2010 document. Some arguing that yes, whoever read it, but then again you realize that there are a lot of loopholes, and now we are talking amendment again. Honorable Sawa, it is almost inevitable to discuss this document and fail to discuss individuals, or I am forgiven. I hope I'm forgiven if it is not the case. So we ask these questions. Is President Uhuru Kenyatta going to use the BBI to recover the lost ground and probably roar again? Will there be such openings? And let's talk about the ODM leader. Is he going to be useful after the BBI sells through?
Thank you, Linda. I don't look at the BBI in terms of the president and the former prime minister. I would look at the BBI as the future of this country. One, before I proceed, I would also want to correct Honorable Sakwa Bunyasi, my senior, when he said that the equalization fund was never actualized. For me, who comes from one of the marginalized counties, that is Kwale County, we got 1 billion extra on the basis of the equalization fund. Unfortunately, it has expired. The BBI wants to bring it back straight away. That is a plus for us. So actually, the equalization fund.
It wasn't disbursed.
Sorry? You can pick it up, react to him about, we try and fix that.
Yeah, it's provided for, but it's not being disbursed. The treasury is not appropriating it. Okay. That's the problem.
And I think, Linda...
that's the challenge I'm saying, that government gets the option, get away with it when the actual implementation time comes, like they have done with that. Yes. So the fact that it's provided for in the BBI, say the 35%, I can guarantee you that we shall not get that 35% maybe in the next 7 or 8 years. The reason being, the economy can't support it. Because it's not supporting even the 15% now. And we are pondering over it, allowing the treasury to get away with it. Last year, they ended the year with 100 billion shillings in untransferred resources. So somehow we have to put pressure on the system to say, if you have promised this, then provide it. If we agree too quickly, they'll get away with it. It will have been provided, now they'll leave it. It will lie. I'm sure you'll agree with me on that. That
yes. I will agree with you, Mheshimiwa.
Yeah.
But there are certain facts, Linda, around this. You see, the proposals in the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020 are based on the projected economic growth. And we are not going to be a country that is static. Projected economic growth that is based with the need of having an equitable opportunity for economic prosperity. And that's why it has now outlined some areas where the government shall secure and try and support pastoralism, agriculture, which is sustainable, and even intellectual property as a sustainable development area to ensure that we project the growth of this economy so that we secure that 35%. But be that as it may, the other issue that people are not talking about is why is it that there has been a problem in ensuring that the counties get their equitable share of revenue?
Right.
That problem starts from Parliament. Why? Because the requirement is that the basis of dividing revenue shall be based on the most audited accounts as submitted to Parliament by Auditor General. And the members of Parliament are required to approve that. The years or financial year where this country has collected more revenue, and when you're dividing revenue, you should be based on that. The Parliament that we have today has been, I would not say a lazy Parliament, but for one or two reasons, they have failed to ensure that they are at the par with the audited accounts, and therefore the counties don't get the equitable share. But look, what does the BBI say to cure that? It say, in the event that there is division of revenue that is required to be based on the most audited accounts, then for one or two reasons Parliament has not approved those audited accounts, then the revenue division of revenue shall be based on the accounts that have been submitted by the Auditor General. That is a cure. And amendment in Article 202. The other one, just a minute. The other one he mentioned
they
about...
They will not be legal.
The other one he mentioned that, but what do you mean they'll not be legal, but this is now the constitution? I'm reading.
No, it can't be.
I'm arguing from a constitutional proposal that if passed shall be the supreme law. Number two, he's talking about equalization fund. Equalization fund was not just a fund. It was a fund that was meant to bring other counties that are marginalized to the same level with the counties that are seem to be doing well. And it had a sunset period. That sunset period will come to an end. What does BBI do? It extends the sunset period so that the beneficiaries of the equalization fund can continue. And it was meant for development purposes to provide specific services.
Okay.
Water, electricity, roads, So we must also understand as a people that in the constitutional amendment processes, it must be for the people. And if it works, then what does the members of parliament do to secure their people to ensure that it works? Remember, currently, our members of parliament are the ones who should be talking about issues of national interest. Some of them have not talked about issues of national interest. And they are complaining the loudest.
But let us just clarify. I don't want to dominate this, but let's just clarify one point.
Yes.
Clarify. Before Mheshimiwa clarifies.
All right, now, Honorable Elachi had to find her way in,
So
yes.
that he clarifies everything.
Yes.
Number one, when you say that in the counties at the moment they are not getting even the 15%, then it will be very unfortunate, because I know, and I was a senator 2013 to 2017, and we know very well at this time counties are getting 33%.
Yes.
They are getting 33%.
Come on,
Let
us not lie.
No,
let us not
and
lie.
it is not a lie. It is not a lie, and we can do that next week and bring the facts. But then the other question should be that where is the money of the local revenue that we left to the counties? What is happening with that money? Why is it that we are looking just at the national government? Then we return all revenues to national government, and national government collects revenue for counties. Because it's very unfortunate when we look at what the counties are supposed to collect for themselves, and they are not collecting, and you're expecting everything to be done again by national government, then why do we have county governments? It means you're expecting, if the national government will not work, then the county dies? No, the Constitution envisaged in 5 years, counties will be able to even collect more revenue than
But that has not been realized, and we have to acknowledge that. We still have a long way to go, so to speak.
Yeah, and local governments never used to be paid by national governments. Local governments paid salaries for their people and did their development. Yet, at this time, we have monies coming from national government. We have local revenue streams that national government cannot touch in every county that we have today. And we have more better streams than what was there during the local authorities. What has happened? Parliament has to help us to help counties come up with a serious legal framework to tell them your local revenues must also be presented and shown even in the assembly that this is what we have collected locally. And it should be locally shown.
Well,
not the way we do also the budgets of national government, where it is, you itemize your budget, then you show where you've gotten the revenues that you're going to use after you itemize these budgets.
Well,
I think that's the most important thing.
Around 8 years or 9 years thereafter, there's still conversations that revolve around how best we can make the best of devolution in terms of actually getting these counties to collect their revenue. We are not yet there just yet, where there is a proper collection of revenue. And probably before we come to you, Honorable Sakwa, to react to the same, I think it's only fair that we allow Honorable Sakwa to come in. And I mean, squarely again, the blame has been laid. Or we don't have him, yes. The blame has been laid upon the House that you probably have not done well.
I agree with Honorable Elachi.
Yeah.
That county governments ought to do more to collect more revenue, and more. The other side of revenue is called taxation. So counties, some counties have to. Each county must evaluate to what extent they want to tax their citizens. But for laws, the tax laws that exist, they must collect the optimum revenue they can. There's no excuse about that. Even if all of the remittances from the Division of Revenue bail amounts that goes into the county allocation as done by the Senate, even if all that is paid on time, does not excuse them from not collecting their revenues. That they must do, and more revenue they have got, the more development they can do. What I'm talking about the inability to finish off this payment, that year after year, usually by the end of the financial year, government has not yet remitted the full amounts. They fall into the following year. And that is an obligation that the Treasury then follows through during they don't lose the money, it's then paid to them later. But you know that the accounting period is the 12 months that you've got. We talk about absorptive capacity, talk about how much have you put on development. The development funds come late in the day, and then they don't have enough time to apply it. So that's just, it's a financial management problem that's related to the capacity of government to mobilize these resources. The second one, which is a quick clarification I was going to make, the law says that the amount of money, the revenue that goes to the counties shall be, as it is now, not less than 15% of the last audited accounts. And now the audited accounts are about 2 years, maybe sometimes 3 years behind. Yeah. The closest they can be is 2 years ago. Like, for example, what they would be discussing now must be 30th June, should have been 30th June accounts as audited. But you see, those accounts are not ready for submission into Parliament. It's just in the process of doing it. So it'll be about 18 months, 2 years back. It's not bad by itself. It's on that basis that the late disbursement releases are happening. Nice. That they need to fix that. Now my worry, and I'm talking non-partisan, but as an economist on this, that as I see the structure of our economy, we will have to get a terribly strong person who is completely convinced, who is the Pope of devolution, to have this to happen. If there is any latitude in it, it doesn't happen freely. The national government acts as if any funds to the county governments are a loss. That's a mistake, because that's where the 50 million people live. Yes. So it is true that they ought to get that money and get even more. If you talk about the equalization fund, the people, particularly the pastoral communities and some other areas, and I'm sure my friend Sawa Tandaza will agree with me, there has been a lot of serious push to the Treasury to begin to release funds, to release money into that fund. The fund is legal, it exists, but it's not funded. And if they have been funding, we would be having a lesser of a problem on these issues of revenue sharing of the type we had in the Senate. Because indeed, as he has said, that money is supposed to make those corrections without charging it on the resources of the county, to say the state wants you to move up to a level that's comparable to other regions and so on. The goodwill is there, and I support that goodwill. The capacity to deliver it on the basis of how we are structured is still not there. Maybe it's the lack of what would you say, will, what's the right English word? That willingness to do it, without being.
As they say, we probably are looking forward to get leaders that will be willing, and so when they come
those leaders don't come quickly. That's the problem, and they're not on the horizon yet.
Wind up.
Yeah.
As the argument, yes. Honorable Ilachi, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just agreeing with my Shimiwa. Those leaders don't just come. But then at the same time...
But then we do not fail to plan just because we think these leaders won't come easy, Fred. And I guess that's why the BBI is here. And as you've said, in as much as we do not have the money right now, we're looking forward to times being better.
Constitutions
well, I don't want us to really talk about this thing we don't have money. You can't wake up to Kenyans and you've been able to collect tax of nearly 1.4 trillion tax from Kenyans. That is money that takes a budget of Uganda, I think, and Rwanda, and then you wake up and tell them, we have money, but we use it badly. We must.
You have 1 trillion
ask
debt
ourselves,
to pay every year.
we have money and we steal the money.
The debt is
even if you're borrowing money and people will see development, that somebody in Western will see new factories coming up, nobody will question. Kenyans are questioning because they are not seeing why you should be borrowing and why people are still struggling. So the question in Kenya is not that we don't have resources. We have resources that God has blessed us with. We misuse the resources that God has given us. In fact, Kenya, we can survive without borrowing if we can just be straight with what we are doing from the counties. I'm not talking of the national government alone, from the counties. We can. It can happen. It has happened. But we have just been people who look at mali ya umma. The person
a problem of the leadership?
Not serikali.
Yes, I agree with what Speaker Lachi is saying. And I want just to remind Kenyans on the objects of devolution. One of the objects of devolution was to ensure that the communities manage their own affairs and further their development. How do you ensure that you manage your affairs and further development? You must now start putting resources there as a startup to industrialize fast. And that's what the framework, the BBI Constitutional Amendment Bill is bringing. You industrialize the local areas and then give them the capacity to now produce locally, and they shall not rely heavily on the national government revenue that people are now talking about is not capable. They are capable. Lastly, let us be honest with ourselves. This referendum that is coming, it's a referendum that is going to ensure that the people of Kenya choose between what is right and do it, or reject it if it is wrong. But I have seen in this country, everyone can attest that at the smallest unit of devolved system called the ward, people are poor, people are suffering. Today you drive out of here, you go to a ward in Parklands, there's tarmac road. But when you go to my village in Owabe County, Kakelo Kokwanyo ward, there's no tarmac road. And that's why we're saying the resources are needed most at the smallest unit, so that we start using those units as the accelerated units of development. Then, from there, we can now start saying we are measuring development bottoms up. But how are we going to do that? You put a framework. What is this framework? This framework must be a point of reference called the Constitution of Kenya. That Constitution of Kenya has given guidelines so that the members of parliament, when they're legislating, they are guided. The MCAs, when they're legislating, they are guided. The public, when they're walking around and doing their business, they are guided. What do they need to do? What don't they need to do? In this context, I am convinced that the right thing to do now is to ensure that we take resources there, but not only take them, protect those resources to the penny. Then how do we protect? We have seen, Speaker mentioned one of the challenges that we have had. We have resources, but we are not making prudent use of the resources as required in the financial laws. What we are doing, we are misusing the resources. So let us protect the resources. But in a way, if there is an instance where resources have been misappropriated or there's an allegation, then let us also expedite the process of recovery, trial, conviction, so that we don't have cases of misappropriation of funds in court for 10, 20 years. We shall have lost it. I believe it is possible.
All right, in 30 seconds, Mheshimiwa, as we call it a day.
The BBI Trust had good intentions. We started off from the premise that unequal development in different regions is part of what has caused this deep anger, and that we must get a formula in which all areas begin to develop and perhaps even catch up. That was the thinking. But there was also the issue of ensuring that there are no recurrent conflicts after elections. That is not, for me, I don't see how that can be tackled through the BBI. I thought that would mean, on the one hand, that we don't have one national office for which you go to election, because that's why you get this competition that is led to violence. But that if you are in a parliamentary system, you're electing at most your local parliamentary representatives, senator and MP, and your ward representatives. So there's no need for you in Busia to fight somebody in Cliffy and so on. But because we are going for national office, this issue is going to remain. Why? Because we are not tackling the electoral issues. They're just coming out as an afterthought and so on. So let us not mix up the economic benefits we are talking about and the avoidance of violence. You can see what is already happening with the temperatures that are rising. All I want to say is I want to urge Kenyans, including us in this panel, let us begin to use real data that we have got. We will collect, perhaps this year is projected that the coming year will do 1.7 trillion. That's probably most unlikely. But that whatever the case is, like if you're collecting about 1.3, 1.2, our debt service, which is a reality today, is $1 trillion. It's going to be $1 trillion plus. So then the rest is what remains in the system, and it's very little even to pay the wage bill. Forget the development component of it. So it's an economy that requires a lot of massaging. But the processes we are having do not take care of this. Yeah. So we shall have IMF live with us here for a long time to come. But well and good, the BBI is intended to bring people on the table to debate these matters and so on. Now that we all at least provide a copy of a bill, in the next time to referendum, not just to the passage by the county assemblies, I will have had a chance to go substance by substance, perhaps not line by line, on what is proposed, so that at the vote time, the decisions will be clear in the minds of the people, individually decided whether to vote for, vote against. But then, whatever the case, we still have got our Kenya. It has to, it's like a patient. A patient has to take the medications required.
Yes, we should.
And exercise every day. The economy is also in that same mode.
Well, above everything, it is interesting how the gentlemen have already concluded that indeed there's going to be a referendum. Yeah, it is a process that we are talking about. So we look forward to that.
It's going to be passed. There are enough counties to do that. I can even write. Give me time.
The
I'll list which
counties.
Ones. Yes, yes.
All right, let's close it, Honorable Elachi, in 30 seconds.
Well, for me, I think the most important thing is, first of all, I know BBI is a very, very political, it's a political tool, and with the political processes. But at the same time, let us go through the process, pass this, for the sake of many other issues that are there, the issues of youth, the issues of tax-free for young people for 7 years. Let us not just look at that political part that everyone is looking at. Let us look at the things that we know that are going to really indeed change lives. I remember in 2005, we lost a constitution from bombers because of our political agonies and conflicts that we had. Yet it was among the best. Forget about 2010. We will not be talking about 2/3 today if we finished with bombers, with many other issues that we had brought in. So now, for this, there are lessons we have learned, there are lessons that are in that can cure, and let us go fast, finalize this process, and then we move on as a country. The issue of political tensions that are there, I agree that, yes, these are issues that we just need to ask ourselves. Do we always have to go through this? For the sake of what? Then that if these are leaders who will always take us to war, Kenyans are complaining now, they should now wake up and remove them, all of them, and just say, yes, if anyone has ever taken us to war, why are we fighting? We don't know. Why? Must you be a president? It's God's will. So
but just how much does the vote count in this case? But all the same, we
yes.
We say yes.
So for me, it is my prayer that we separate 2022 from BBI and we deal with BBI first.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Elachi. I think we look at that, right? It's only fair that we look at that. And on behalf of Honorable Kasim Sawa, whom we lost along the way, I would probably say it is incumbent upon you to be, on alert, because the ball is coming on your court. What decision will you make? Make sure that you make an informed decision, not based on what it is that you're told, but based on your own, right conscience. And on that note, asante sana. Honorable Beatrice Elachi, former Speaker Nairobi, Fred Okango, Secretary General Third Way Alliance. We had Kasim Sawa Tandaza, Member of Parliament Matuga, and lastly, Sakwa Bunyasi, Member of Parliament Nambale. We close it at that as we cross over to a different conversation altogether on apple farming. It's an interesting one. We're going to be having apples on set, so make sure that you keep it right here.